chance to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in! What a comeback!
All right, welcome back to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. I'm Corey. I'm here with Max and Nick. So the Saints are coming off the fantastic, not disappointing at all, 28-6 victory over the Panthers. I was there to see it. Y'all chose not to be. But this one was, I don't even know how to describe it. Max, what do you think about what you saw from our team on Sunday?
Well, first of all, Nick is actually on location, just in case you guys think his audio sounds a little wonky today.
He might kind of sound like a caller from the point after with
Buddy D. Yeah, Nick's actually calling in from California. He's living in the lap of luxury right now, eating crab legs and drinking fine wine. So he's calling in tonight. But as far as the game goes, I would say it was the worst game I watched all year, and that's college and pro. Just two shitty teams having an ass off, basically. You know, the movable force meets the resistible object, however you want to say it. It was a bad game. You know, the Panthers are the worst team in the league. I can definitively say that after having watched the Patriots play earlier in the season. The Panthers are bad.
Yeah.
They're really fucking bad.
And it showed.
It shows, man. And Nick and I talked about this offline, you know, the question about Bryce Young, and we've had the debate on and off. I still think he's going to end up being good, but, man, the early returns are bad. Now, that being said, he doesn't have much around him as far as skill, talent, or offensive line protection, but, dude, he looks bad.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say that there's not a lot around him, but also, man, there were a lot of open guys he wasn't even close on. If you're Carolina and you're about to give the number one overall pick right back to the Bears, I mean, it's disaster. It's a disaster. I mean, you gave up DJ Moore, last year's top 10 pick, and you're about to just give the number one pick overall right back to him. I mean, you can't feel good about Bryce Young right now, period. I mean, he might be the worst quarterback in the league. If maybe Zach Wilson didn't exist, it looks really, really bad. He should have taken advantage of a number of plays downfield, especially that were wide open. He missed Mingo on a post that was wide open. I mean, if he throws it anywhere close to him, it's a touchdown. He just looked terrible. From the positives, if there are any, this is a bad offense we were playing, like really, really bad. So I don't want to get too, overly optimistic about the defense, but they were hitting people yesterday. They looked good. I mean, they were coming up on everything. As soon as people were touching the ball, they were hitting them. Even in the run game, which was, again, terrible, run defense.
Yeah.
If you take away the one big play where Miles Sanders had I think it was about a 50-yard run, you take that away, it actually wasn't terrible run defense. But, again, you gave up a play. Great play by Adebo to track that down and tackle him at the one. We ended up forcing a field goal after a DeMario sack. But the effort was absolutely there, and it looked better than it's looked in the past, 6 or 7 weeks. But again, that's a terrible team you're playing. So, that's what it should look like.
Yeah.
Offensively, that was an absolute travesty, period. No, go ahead. It's just terrible.
Offensively for us or for them? Or both?
I think for us.
I'll say for both.
Well, for both.
Yeah, both.
Well, I was going to say, to your point about the defense, I mean, they definitely came up with some huge plays. Mostly in the defensive backfield. I mean, our DBs kind of saved our chances of, in my opinion, I think they saved our chances of staying in the game with some of those PBUs. But there were also times going back to the Panthers where I was looking at the way that they played and said to myself, like, thank God they are this bad, because we needed two things to be where we got to get to the position we got to in that game. We needed our DBs to break up some of the accurate passes that Bryce Young did throw. And then we needed those guys, the Panthers, to be that bad. Because without the Panthers being bad and our DBs being in position on the good throws, it would have been a totally different ballgame. So we were relying on the low quality of that team.
Yeah, and let me say this. I mean, I don't want to step on our predictions. You know, we'll get to that later, but it's hard to find an offensive and a defensive MVP. You know, to me, Nephi Sewell, you know, he made the biggest play of the game because that game was a one-score game for the majority of the game. And without that block punt for a touchdown, dude, it was looking dicey going into the fourth quarter. I mean, this team is bad. And I don't even know who I'm talking about, the Saints or the Panthers, because they're both fucking bad.
Yeah. I mean, the block punt made it 14-3.
Not defense.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
We needed
the Sewell play is a special teams play.
No, that's what I said. It's the block punt for a touchdown. That's what I'm saying. That was, to me, right. He's the MVP of the game because that turned the game. That's a free 7 points. And dude, we couldn't. What do we get? We got the turnover on their side of the field, and we couldn't cash it in. I mean, we had
that was horrible.
17 plays or something, and on their side of the field in like the first 2 quarters, and we had like no points to show for it.
Yeah,
it's like what the fuck?
Yeah, this was one where with the Lions game, I wasn't there at the Lions game, and that was the Santa brunch that we talked about, so I didn't even really see.
Shout out to Santa.
Shout out to Santa. Hope you make it over to NOLA this year. But no, I didn't see the bad Carr, the Carr that got the boos. I mean, Carr got boos the whole time, but the Lions game was one of those. It's like, okay, he got booed, but didn't he have that stretch of like 15 straight completions? Didn't he actually kind of play well for a certain amount of time? So I'm still trying to fit. Like, I know why the boos are there because everybody just like hates Derek Carr, the person. Like that just makes perfect sense. But for this game, holy shit, were they justified? I mean, there was no questioning the boos for this game. And they were deserving. And sure enough, he hit what he had to hit. But like
it was bad. It was just bad all around. You know, it's bad football from top to bottom. And I put a tweet up after the game, saying that basically the NFC South is being graded on a curve this year because there's three and 14 teams and one and 16 team in the same division. And just by all of us being in the same division, we're getting elevated a little bit. It's being graded on a curve. It's like you got a bunch of idiots in a class and you gotta, no one's getting an A, no one's getting a B. You got to kind of bump it up. So that's basically what our division is.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, there we go. Nick calling in on a little bit of a delay, so it's.
I agree also.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I thought Corey was going to talk, but I agree 100%. The division is absolutely terrible. The 3 schedules on the way in my opinion, Max and I were looking at them yesterday. They're very similar. Every team has, they play. We all play each other. We play Bucks. We play Falcons at the end of the season. Last 2 games. We have the Rams first, and then the other 2 teams have, the Jags, Indy, the Bears. I think the Falcons have to play. There's some tough games for everybody left. It's coming down to the last 2 games, like Max said weeks ago. It's coming down to the Bucks and Falcons game, and if you're not 2-0 in those games, we're losing the division. If they somehow pull off those 2 games, then they're probably going to win this division somehow, which is bonkers. But it's 3 bad teams fighting for one spot. And, it reminds me of the time the Saints went to Seattle against a bad 7-9 team and the Beastquake happened. And it's one of those situations. A bad team is going to get in the playoffs here. And, maybe they get lucky, maybe they don't when the playoffs come around. But, none of these teams is going anywhere this year. It's a question of whether you want to see us win a division and – most likely look terrible in the playoffs, or if you'd rather to see us bow out and hope for a better draft pick. And, I know there's plenty of fans out there that just the only thing on their minds right now is getting Dennis Allen fired. If that's your motivation, then, you're hoping we don't win this division because it's hard for me to see a world where Mickey Loomis fires Dennis Allen if they win the division.
You say that, but Mickey looked pretty beaten down in the locker room.
Yeah,
it's like clips they shared. Like he looked like he's been through the ringer, man.
Gale giving him his game ball for the 200th career victory, and it didn't take him long to say, "I've also had 150 losses."
yeah. He didn't look too happy in the post game locker room scene. So
yeah, I think he's trying to temper things. I hope Mickey's been getting a lot of attention because he does these weekly chats with Mike Hoss and WWL. And, his good God, I hated his explanation about the Lions game, chalking it up to economics of the Saints fans where, I get it, guys. They got to sell some tickets, No,
that impersonation's fucking terrible.
That was great.
That was
you just got to go back and listen to Mickey again.
Also, real quick, no one made money on selling those tickets.
No, right, exactly. People lost money.
I made a little bit.
Well, yours are different, but
you sold them early. Then you sold them early.
But it's like, no, Mickey, they're choosing to sell their tickets because they can't. They'd rather have their skin get peeled back at their eyelids.
Yeah, and another counterpoint as well to what he said. Back in the day when Nick and I were broke as fuck, and couldn't afford shit. It's like you still found a way to pay for season tickets.
Season tickets.
It was like basically food kind of took a backseat to Saints season tickets and alcohol. Like we found a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, and we always found a way to get the tickets. So I don't want to hear shit about hard times, economic times, all this stuff.
No. And here's what I'm really hoping. He has to know. Okay.
He knows.
He's not going to say it on WWL.
He can't.
And the people that are freaking out, like, really, Mickey? Really? You think this is really like, oh my God, our GM doesn't even understand? It's like, no. Like, I think the GM, I would hope to God, if Mickey Loomis doesn't understand what's actually happening with this franchise right now, then he's not the guy we thought he was.
Yeah, and here's the biggest thing.
He's saying what he has to say.
Here's the biggest thing that people need to realize. This place, for it to be an attractive destination for other, soon-to-be head coaches, like up-and-comers, like maybe a Ben Johnson, you don't want to have the reputation of, hey, we're just going to fire you on a whim. Kind of like the Commanders have done and, teams like that. The bad teams that continually fire coaches in the middle of the season, kind of like the Panthers did with Frank Reich. 10 or 11 games into his tenure, he gets canned. You don't want that reputation. The Saints have a good reputation as far as treating their employees right. And obviously, don't let head coaches linger around forever, no matter how bad they start.
Oh, yeah. The Panthers are putting on a clinic on how to set a franchise back like 5 years at a time.
Yeah, thank God for us. So,
yeah. Let's also say they fired their last coach after 2 years, right? So,
right.
No, he was a dumpster fire.
Cautionary tale, you can't just fire your way out of it. You look at the Cowboys right now and not firing McCarthy, and that's looking pretty smart all of a sudden, which is wild. 2 years ago, none of us would have thought that would have looked good. So, it's tough. I think, most of us agree it's probably time for Dennis Allen to move on. But, just firing a coach doesn't necessarily fix things either. You got to get the next one right if you're going to do that. So it's a lot harder than it seems to just get that right.
Yeah, you really, really got to get it right. One other thing I was thinking with this game is, I'm trying to remember a more disappointing win with a 20-plus point margin of victory. I'm really not finding it.
Yeah, but also bear in mind, those last two touchdowns came with like 5 minutes remaining. 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah,
we got a couple of, quote on. I don't want to call it garbage time touchdowns but it was basically garbage time touchdowns.
It wasn't. The first one was not the long play to A.T. Perry and then the resulting touchdown. That wasn't garbage time. That was a tight game. That's a good drive.
We had 7.
No. It's a great drive, but at the same point, it's like they. It's not. You're right. It's not garbage time touchdowns, but it's just what I mean. Though it's like they tacked them on at the end. And, it doesn't – you look at the score, it's not at all indicative of the game. Because that game was a dogfight from start of the game till midway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
it was in question.
It wasn't a 22-point victory.
Like, there was a point where I remember texting the two of y'all. Corey was at the game. Nick and I were watching it on TV. And I texted both of y'all and said, this is that point where they were going to score a touchdown and they were going to get the 2-point conversion. And this game is about to be tied. And I want to say there was about 8 or 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter at that point. So it went from that to a 22 point or whatever the hell it was victory in a flash. So look, it's a disappointing win. It really is. I know wins are hard to come by and you have to be grateful that you get a win in the NFL, but that shit was disappointing, dude. Yeah. Like I feel worse about the Giants game now than I did going in. Well, and look, like I stuck to my, kind of half, I was joking around when I'm like, I'm not picking them again the rest of the year. But after that, I don't think I can pick him again. I mean, that was bad.
Well, that brings me to what I wanted to ask y'all again, and Nick, you posed the question to us after the Lions game, and it is, so after that game, do you feel better, worse, or the same about the team? What do you think, Nick?
After the Lions game, I felt better.
No, I'm saying, so I'm going to use the same question, but for
after
this game.
I feel worse. Yeah,
worse.
This is way worse. That I do think that's a much better defense than the Lions defense. I think there have actually been a fairly respectable defense considering what they've been up against with that offense being so terrible. But that was a terrible performance for 3 quarters by the offense. Absolutely terrible. So you can't feel good about the offense. The defense, I want to find the bright spots in how well they played, especially in the secondary once again this week. But that team isn't a worthy opponent to judge anything by. So it's hard for me to do that. So coming out of it, I felt good. I felt better about the offense a little bit last week because they started humming before, once again, he got knocked out and Jameis couldn't hit the side of a barn. But you have to feel worse after this. For 3 quarters, it was terrible offense. Terrible.
Yeah.
The fourth quarter, that one drive I was talking about, I think was actually a really good drive. That was a good deep ball. I don't know why that wasn't tried earlier in the game. We literally did not throw the ball downfield once until the fourth quarter.
No, they had the other one.
Even the throw to Olave.
Yeah, that was a deep one. That was almost. No, the first one to Olave was in the second quarter.
Fourth quarter or third quarter? Okay,
I thought it was. Okay. Yeah.
And look.
That was a great pass.
That was inches away from being – it was. And it was inches away from being a catch. If J.C. Horn doesn't make that last-second hand in there, Olave catches it. I think Olave might have been able to high-point that ball and make that catch. But either way, that was almost a catch.
I think Olave was actually –
they need to be doing more of that.
I think he was actually going for the vet move where you try to kind of be nondescript, and not use your eyes to catch the ball. Which is, look, I'm not going to knock him for trying to do a savvy little move like that, but with a guy like J.C. Horn, it actually kind of backfired. But no, I being there, and we were at the 5-yard line to the goal line. There were multiple opportunities for Derek Carr until that fourth quarter with a couple downfield passes to throw the ball downfield, and he didn't. I know it sounds like an old broken record, and I know it sounds like what a lot of people, the people who go way out of their way to criticize him when maybe he doesn't quite deserve it. He absolutely deserved it in this game because he had the opportunity to push the ball downfield, and it was like he literally was choosing not to multiple times, and he's electing not even the checkdowns, but it was like every series there was a play where they gave him an out where he's throwing the 1 yard check down ish to the sideline where the X or the Y is just kind of parking it, and he's got a little outlet out to the sideline 2 or 3 yards down the field instead of throwing it down. 2 or 3 yards to the sideline instead of throwing it down the field. He just looked so indecisive almost the whole game. And I think you said it, Nick, when we were texting during the game, you were just like, if Carr would just be as decisive as he was on that A.T. Perry, Jimmy Graham, Chris Olave touchdown drive, it would have been a whole different ballgame. 37 yards with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter is unbelievable. It's horrible. It's all the bad adjectives you can think of, but it's beyond belief.
Like Bryce has an excuse. He's a rookie and he's in a very bad situation. Derek Carr does not have that excuse.
No, it's truly beyond belief that he could have 37 yards.
37? Come on, Nick. You got that reference. No, but it was a bad performance. And I do want to – well, here's another thing. You ask him, do you feel better or worse after that game? How about the Bears beating the Lions? That makes last week look even –
I don't know who to chalk that up to. The Lions not being as good.
The Lions are not as good.
Or the Bears overachieving. I don't know.
Well, no, the Bears defense has been playing a lot better as of the last few weeks.
But the Lions are overrated, let's be honest. And that's why they let us back into that game.
Exactly.
They're a bad defense and a pretty good offense. They let us back in that game because they're not a great team. If they were a great team, they would have just put us to bed that game.
And that's why I think everyone needs to temper their enthusiasm.
I think the Bears are a very tough matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Temper the enthusiasm about what we saw against the Lions with the offense.
I think Derek Carr's 15 straight completions that we saw in the Lions game, people need to go ahead and kind of put a little asterisk next to that and say, you know what? That Lions defense is fucking bad.
Yeah.
And that's a big contributor to why Carr was able to go 15 of 15 in that stretch before getting hurt.
Yeah. It just, it just goes back to the whole, my biggest, not biggest takeaway, but if someone's like, how do you best describe this team, and including what we saw on Sunday? It goes back to what we said, where no matter who we're playing against, we're playing exactly to the level of our competition.
The Patriots is the one exception.
Patriots, one exception, maybe Indy, but we kind of played to their level to an extent. But that is a sign of bad coaching. It's a sign of bad coaching, just, because a good team plays to their standard. Right? Like the Sean Payton teams, the Super Bowl 2011, 2018, like they played to who?
That's not exactly true.
Yeah, that's not, because we lost a lot of games, like the Rams game. I think it was the Rams multiple times where we were rolling, and that one loss cost us basically home field advantage.
Okay. Well, more times
Peyton had his letdowns on that kind of stuff. Yeah,
but more times than not, they're playing to who they are. They're not necessarily always. This team is. But for what, one game, maybe two? It's the Jags are supposed to be a good team, right? We played them close. The Panthers are a bad team. We beat them by 3 points last time. This game didn't look as close didn't look as wide of a margin of victory as it was. No matter who we're playing exactly to their level. And just the coaches can't get these guys to just play to a fucking standard.
There is no standard here anymore.
That's what I mean. It's just, and that's my biggest takeaway, is that yet again another opponent comes in and we just kind of putter around for most of the game because our guys have no drive from their coach.
So I've got a question for you. So let's talk about the Eric McCoy, Derek Carr spat, because there's lots of different interpretations I've heard about it. But from being at the game, I'm not sure how your view was of the actual altercation, but what was your takeaway from that?
Yeah, so I saw the whole thing, because eyes were on Carr.
And I'll be honest with you, just to preface this, I went to take the dog out for a walk, and I came back in, and all of a sudden, like, Twitter's blowing up.
Well, I was kind of curious because, like, our standard operating procedure for the three of us is to be basically texting almost the entire game on our group text. And I was kind of surprised when I did not see any text coming from y'all after that happened. My eyes, from my vantage point, went straight to Carr, and it was, saw him spike the ball, and then saw him. I was like, oh, I saw that little angry elf fist pump that he does when he gets all red faced and whatnot. And then he turns towards McCoy, and I'm like, okay, quarterback center talking about, oh shit, McCoy is like going into Carr. And if it wasn't for Hurst being there, Carr would have got concussed again. And I was like, all right, so they're scuffling. But then McCoy didn't stop. It was like McCoy was on one of those just like rage benders where he couldn't come off of it. And it was just the whole way from the between the hash mark and the numbers all the way to the sideline. Hurst is holding him back. Then other team members come to him. And I'm just watching it the whole time thinking, like, when is this going to stop? He just didn't stop. And he was like leaning forward, people holding him back. Did it all the way to the bench. Carr goes his way. McCoy goes his way. It was ugly. I mean, like, the cameras didn't catch it on TV after I watched like the clips of the rebroadcast. They caught like a little blip of it. And I was like, damn, I wish I would have taken a video of that. But it was rough. And I know that they said, oh, we squashed it, whatever. But it just, for a guy who's been pretty mild-mannered as a person, whether it's press interviews, as a player, you don't really see the guy catching many personal fouls. There's no extracurriculars after the play from McCoy. Keeps it close to center of chest. That dude was just, it was like instinct. He just was enraged. It was crazy.
I think it's a weird play to see an offensive lineman freak out. I mean, that was poorly blocked for sure, and it had nothing to do with McCoy. So that's the interesting part. I think it was Ruiz. Yeah, completely whiffing on a block. The one thing that I think is very strange is immediately after that, is when we looked like we gave a shit. And so I don't know what happened, but it was terrible all day. The one thing I wanted to bring back before we were talking about how bad the offense was and how bad Carr was, there's no debating that. But we couldn't pick up a blitzing linebacker the entire game. It was crazy. They would rush the fifth person, and basically the down was over. He went straight through the same linebacker every time. And he would come between Ruiz and McCoy every single time. And after that happened, all of a sudden, we scored 2 touchdowns. I don't know what the hell is going on, but it was a crazy play. I don't understand. I would love to know what was said so we would have some context on this. I understand Carr's frustration on the play. And if he said anything to McCoy, I understand McCoy's frustration on the play. Like, if he said anything directed at McCoy, that's unfair. He didn't do anything wrong. He blocked the guy in front of him, which was a tackle who crashed down into him to try and open the blitz for the linebacker. He did his job perfectly. So if there was anything from Carr directed at McCoy, it makes no sense. And if Carr was just making a general statement, for McCoy to get that upset, it makes no sense. So I'd really love to know what was said. They'll never tell us, of course. We'll never know. But why did it take that for it seemed like the first time our offense started to give a shit in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left after that? That's the sad part. Like, it takes something to get us motivated. It's weird. I don't understand it.
I think it's to your point. It was almost like the whole offense was just sleepwalking for the first, 2 or 3 quarters. And it took an event like that where basically everyone in the stadium's watching what's going on and they see these two going at it. And it's like all of a sudden that jars them out of their funk. And, it is. If you get in a scuffle with somebody, you're all hyped up and you're focused at that point.
Yeah, you've reset your adrenaline. You're
right. It's like Brett Favre used to say, he had to get that first hit, like someone to hit him in the pocket. And then all of a sudden he was going. Yeah. Look, I mean, it was a thing for him. So I don't know. Maybe it's the same thing for our offensive line. Like, they were fucking sleepwalking, and this was the thing that kind of broke them out of their funk.
You think Eric McCoy said, "No one makes me bleed my own blood"?
I'm not touching that one. Your impersonations are going downhill quick, man.
That was go look this shit up. Come on, God,
they're getting bad.
No appreciation for it. No appreciation.
I've got no appreciation for it. I admit it. But no, it's concerning. And look, it points to coaching. Like, these fucking guys are not ready to play. Yep. It's like, who was it last week? It was an offensive lineman, I think, that was talking about after the Lions game saying, we need to be better prepared going into it. It's like we're making these adjustments.
No, it's defense. That was Colin Sanders.
You're right. It was Colin Saunders. And
we got to be – he said something. It was so jarring. It was we got to
pre-plan for these possible scenarios. It's like, are you not having fucking meetings? Are you not being coached? It's all concerning. It's all concerning. It's all, and it points to the head man.
Yep.
Over and over again. And I'm not going to go off on a tangent on this because we've covered our thoughts and feelings on DA enough.
Well,
but it's coaching.
I think about this.
To coaching.
Like, Nick, when you're not podcasting with us or doing sports related things, you work in healthcare, and like there, correct me if I'm wrong, but are there not signs of this is a healthy patient and this is a sign of a not healthy patient? Like, regardless of what surgery you're doing or what, orthotic or whatever the terms are that you use in your field, it's like there are telltale signs of like, this is a healthy human being. This is not a healthy human being. This one is going to present a lot more complications than we thought it would. This one, it's going to be pretty easy. Like, this team, to me, presents so many signs of an unhealthy football team organization. What do you think, Nick? Is that a good analogy?
I mean, I just wanted to see where you're going to finish with that thing. That was
I was trying to land the plane. I'm like, I do not know what I'm talking about right now. I'm trying to navigate this.
I definitely cannot dispute that there is shit wrong everywhere, right? Like, there's too many. We're now what?
Well, that's good. That's a welcome change from your stance for the first half of the year. So that's good. Baby steps.
Well, I was willing to give them a chance to sort it out. It hasn't. It looks the same. So, I think there were a lot of changes in the offseason, and I think every change that we made that needed to go well Hasn't. Every single one. The defensive line transformation has been a disaster. Drafting a player in the first round, signing 2 new defensive tackles, letting, multiple defensive tackles go, re-signing Granderson. Actually, looks like a pretty good signing. Re-signing Cam again. Man, maybe we're overextended there a little bit as far as production goes. The defensive line moves were poor. The Carr move is not working out. The special teams moves, disaster. I mean, that's a bigger disaster than Carr. I mean, you couldn't have got that more wrong on special teams.
It's not a bigger disaster.
The kicking special teams.
Yeah, well, no, special teams in general.
Money, look.
We just had a special teams touchdown. I mean, I think
that's the one big play they've had all year.
Dude, come on!
There's been years there's been plenty of years where we didn't have block punt.
Yeah, but to me, the Carr move outweighs the special teams move because Carr is touching the ball pretty much every play on offense, and it's been a disaster. Yes, the special teams has also been a disaster, but just due to the importance of Carr's position, that's a bigger disaster.
Well, after the Kamara touchdown, we as fans we shouldn't be in a position to say like we did after the Kamara touchdown, like, isn't it amazing what happens in the red zone when you literally don't let Derek Carr throw the ball? That's exactly what we said because that's exactly what we did. We ran it, we gave it to our best player, and we scored a touchdown. We didn't let Derek throw a pass inside the 10 or whatever yard line it was before we ultimately scored, and we scored. The one before that, we let him throw it a couple times, and Groupie missed a chip shot. That shouldn't be the reality we're in, or absolutely wasn't what we were expecting. And that, I think that's what gets, besides the fact that Carr is just awful in his press interviews and rubbing people the wrong way, that particular type of play on the field is what's getting us as fans just like in the position where we're saying, what the fuck are we doing?
Dude, how about Derek Carr's brother, by the way? That dude went on a blocking spree on Twitter. It was impressive.
I wanted to say one thing to Darren Carr first. I'm pissed at you, sir, for not blocking me. I kind of feel like I don't have as much cred as a Saints fan because I'm not blocked by you.
He didn't block me either. I haven't said anything, though.
The other thing I want to say is boo. Okay, you happy, Darren? There you go. I just had to do it. I had to get off my chest.
There you go. Well, I'm glad you did that.
Yep, did it. So what do we think? Talk about players who did well. Who do you want to get into our predictions? And
yeah, let's do that.
MVPs?
So we'll start off with you, Corey. So you predicted a win.
I did.
Well done.
I believe it was 21-12. That was about to hit for a minute there.
You did say 21-12.
The Panthers had 6. They were lining up for a field goal that they missed, and we were at 14. I'm like, if we score one more touchdown and they make this, we'll be good. I mean, my prediction will be good.
Well, that one was close. You did well there, but let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. You had Taysom Hill as your offensive MVP.
Well, maybe
80 yards, and if I'm reading this correctly, does this say 2 touchdowns?
Okay, so let's just say the stats weren't correct. Oof. Okay, but maybe is the most valuable player on the offense, maybe for this game, it was the one that didn't play. Like he did a good job deciding, I'm going to sit this one out because Derek's going to have 37 yards passing.
Well, he did what I did. I said, I'm going to sit this one out, and I sat it out.
So maybe that was like more valuable. He was valuable by resting and not getting injured in a shit game for the offense. So
you had DeMario as your defensive MVP. He does have a case. And you said a sack.
Yep, got it.
And 2 tackles for loss.
I think he had at least 2 TFLs. Nick, you want to
He did
stat
it.
guy?
He did that.
He did two TFLs?
1.5 sacks. I think he had 1 TFL outside of the 1.5 sacks, so that's 2.5.
So
TFLs,
if you carry the 0.5 into the TFL, then it's right on the money.
Yeah, it was close.
For me, that's the MVP. So I'm giving that one to Corey because to me, he was the MVP of the defense. If we get into special teams and all that, I agree with Max. The biggest play was Neville Sewell's block. That was a massive play, changed the game. But defensively, it was DeMario, in my opinion. He was the guy who changed the game. He stopped the goal line chance that they had down there. It was his sack that changed it. For me, it's him.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, he torpedoed Bryce on that play. That was amazing. Like his burst to get Bryce on that play was just vintage. You kind of like summoned up the youth for that one play anyway.
Yeah. So let's move on to Nick. Nick had He gave us 2 sets of predictions, one based on Carr playing, one based on Jameis playing.
So let's not even talk about Jameis.
Well, time out. For the record, Corey and I both made our predictions based on the assumption that Carr would sit out and that Jameis would be the starting quarterback.
We did.
So we're just going to throw that out there. Nick, I guess we'll say he had the foresight to go ahead and give us 2 scenarios. So I'm going to go off of the Carr one, obviously. He predicted a win 31-16. He said Olave, offensive MVP. No. He said Granderson, defensive MVP with 2 sacks. Olave wasn't the offensive MVP.
No.
Don't even try to make that argument. Granderson,
wait, Nick, try to make that argument.
The offensive MVP. I'm not making it, but who are we declaring?
I think, to me, I'm going to say Kamara.
I think it has to be Kamara.
It's got to be. He touched the ball.
But Nick, go ahead and if you have an argument for Olave, let's hear it.
I mean, if you're going to give it to Olave, just give it to Jimmy Graham.
I would give it to Jimmy Graham. 100%. I would. Those were the 2 biggest catches of the game. I loved it. But real quick.
But were they? Would we have lost without them?
Touchdown?
Would we have lost without Jimmy Graham's?
I don't know. The third down catch resulted in a touchdown, and then he caught a touchdown. So I'm not saying we lose the game, but do we lose the game without Kamara's performance? I don't think so.
Yes, we do. Because I'm going to tell you, Kamara, like from the first carry where he pushed the pile 8 or 9 yards.
Yeah.
You know, he had some tough fucking runs, man.
Well, and it was almost to the point where I was like, why are we going away from him?
15 touches, 45 yards. 15 touches, 45 yards.
Okay, take away the ridiculous Carr pass to him that went for a loss.
He had negative receiving yards, which I'd like to see when the last time that was for that player. He had negative 11 receiving yards.
Well, one of them was a negative 9-yard reception.
Like, the last time
Carr, it's an asinine
when
throw.
else in his career has that ever happened? Maybe never.
Well, remember earlier in the season when he had the rushing line? It was like 13 catches.
He set the NFL record. I hope they sent those gloves to Canton.
Yeah. No, and look, Kamara averaged 4.7 per carry on 56-yard, long run of 9. So he was just basically grinding it out every single carry. I don't think he had a loss that was a carry. Like Kamara, to me, if he didn't play, we don't win the game.
He gutted out.
He gutted it out.
He gutted out the whole game, but the first touchdown we had.
I think he played well. I agree. He played well. I mean, to say we would have lost when they scored 6, I'm not going to say that, but he played well. Olave played okay. Graham, I loved those 2 plays. It was great. I think it's the only thing that really got a cheer in the dome, probably.
A real cheer.
Do that on those 2 plays. Right, a real cheer. So, like, to me, Max said it before we even got on here. There's really no offensive MVP. We had less than 300 yards. This was a terrible offensive performance.
There were barely cracked 200.
A handful of good plays. Yeah.
I couldn't believe the final stats.
Was it 207?
Well, yeah.
207, I think.
So, Carr got up to 119 passing. Yeah. And we had 97 yards rushing. It's just
we had a sack or
look.
2
It's like I said offline.
Yeah, I mean,
there is no offensive MVP.
Yeah, if there's ever a game, just to say no.
But if we do have to award it to somebody, and I think that Kamara, if we do have to hand it out, he has the biggest case for it.
If anyone saved the game from complete disaster, it was his touchdown to go up 7-3. Because if you remember the drive before that, it was when it was a double whammy because we're in the red zone, maybe. Please, God, can we just get a red zone touchdown? We don't. And then, it's okay because here comes Groupie from inside 30 yards. Surely he's not going to miss another field goal inside 30 yards and misses it worse than he did the one before that. And so when that was the offensive series we were coming off of, so we needed that Kamara touchdown more than anything because without it, it was going to be.
But that's Corey, that stat we were texting each other. Groupies now missed 2 kicks under 29 yards, and the rest of the league combined has missed 2 kicks under 29
Historic.
What else needs to happen?
It's so bad.
It's terrible.
It's so
bad.
Now,
the one play I think that changed the game for the offensive standpoint is the A.T. Perry catch. That's what put the game away, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Play. He's not the offensive MVP, but that play was massive. That's first.
Well, here we go. For our purposes, Corey picked Taysom. No. You picked Olave. No. I picked AK. It's the closest. So we're giving it to him because it's the closest one out of the predictions. Granderson, you had him down for 2 sacks. Well, I mean, no,
he had a great game.
Corey was arguing my point. Corey was arguing the point too. It's like he was. If you have to pick someone, gun to your head.
Offensive MVP. If you want to pick tomorrow, I'm good with it. There's no one to fight for in this case. Granderson, 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss.
Not far off.
Shepard had half a sack. Howden had a sack and a forced fumble, right?
Yeah, he did. Howden played well, man.
I was going to say, let's give a shout out to Jordan Howden because he played the game. Remember, we said this at our
he bounced back.
The preview pod. We said, like, look, the Lions game was clearly every rookie's going to have a game where they just, holy shit, welcome the NFL moment. So we said, hopefully, and maybe even predictably, this is going to be a game where Howden says, well, I played like shit last game, so I'm going to bounce back. And he sure as hell did.
And he did.
He had as many solo tackles as the second place tackler Demario Davis had total.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm fine giving it to Demario, but there's a hell of an argument for Howden.
There really is.
So Howden, to me, it's 1A, 1B.
It really is.
Demario is 1A, but Howden is 1B in this situation.
Howden was having such a good game to where when the play was made or a tackle was like just a thumper type tackle or is behind the line, and you couldn't even really tell who it was. You're like, shit, that was a hard hit. Who was that? And then he pops up and you're like, fuck, that was Howden.
Like, let's put it this way. If either one of you wanted to argue for Howden and plead that case, I wouldn't put up a fight. I would say, I agree with it.
Wouldn't argue it, yeah.
If not for Demario, with essentially the 2 sacks, one he shared with Shepard, but and the timeliness of Demario's play where the game was still semi in doubt at the goal line. If not for that, it probably is Howden. He forced the turnover. Warner recovered it, but that was a sack fumble for Howden. That was a huge play. Now, of course, once again, we don't convert it, but still, that was a big play in their territory at a really a chance for the offense to do something to take control of that game. They chose not to. But if not for Demario,
you're right.
Howden, I think, is the guy.
It's 1A, 1B, and Demario's 1A, so we'll go ahead and give it to him. As far as score, I was the only person to pick the Panthers to win.
I'm creeping up on you in the standings.
Yeah.
One game back now.
I know, huh? Well, here's the deal. Assuming that Jameis was going to play, and not that there's much of a difference between Jameis and Carr because they were both trash.
There is not, yeah.
But if I would have known Carr was starting, I still would have picked
the difference between Jameis and Carr is like the white kitchen trash bags versus the black ones. Like the black ones. Well, actually,
we don't need to make this a race.
Jesus, I didn't even need to do that.
Wow.
Okay.
Corey's like, I'll clean that up in post. That's what we're going to do. We're going to clean that up in post.
No, there really was one of that.
Just stop. So with
I am stopping.
Go ahead and just take us to the close on this one.
So on that wonderfully politically correct note on my part. Anyway, okay, so we got our predictions in.
We went over the predictions, and let's just go cut it off there. I think you're a little discombobulated right now. I can see it on your face.
Yeah,
you're going through the scenarios of getting canceled as an attorney right now, and I don't like
get canceled. Before we get to next episode, in our predictions, the tally is now Max fell back a game and Corey gained a game on Max. So
that's right.
What are we saying? Max is 1 game back, and Corey, you're
still
2 back. You're 2 back, but you're within 1 of Max.
I was 2 back of you.
So
2 back of me, 1 back of Max. Yeah.
For the record, let's just circle back on why I am making the picks that I am making. Is because I don't trust this team, and I'm proving a point. I'm going to pick against them every week. And if Corey passes me up in the standings, I don't give a shit because I'm going to be right more often than not in these last 4 games in predicting a loss. But I'm not deviating. I'm a man of my word. I will stick with what I said. This team's not winning another game the rest of the year. Well, according to my picks.
We'll see what you do in the Giants preview pod next episode.
Bring it on.
You know what I was looking for? Like the force flex versus the regular trash bags.
Give it up. Give it up.
Anyway, okay. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. We will catch y'all with our Giants preview episode next. Until then, who dat?